Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. Hearthstone's Rise of Shadows reveal season has begun, and in this video, this is the first part of my card reviews for Rise of Shadows, and I'm going to review the first 9 cards that have been revealed. We got 8 cards yesterday, and before I managed to get to this video, actually the 9th card was just revealed, so we can review that one as well. This is the set that I'm going to review. Nomi, Forbidden Words, Kalecgos, Togwaggle Scheme, Archvillain Rafaam, Evil Miscreant, Hagatha Scheme, Spellward Jewel, and the Forest's Aid. And let's go and check out which one of these are worth playing. First up, Nomi. 7 mana 6/6 neutral legendary card. With battle cry, if your deck is empty, summon 6/6/6 Greasefire Elementals. So obviously that's a big board. There will be Nomi on the board, and there are 7 slots on the board, so the entire board is full of 6/6 minions. That's a very powerful move. But there's also a pretty huge cost. Your deck has to be empty. So would you rather play Mechatoon and win when your deck is empty, or would you just play Nomi and get some minions when your deck is empty? We'll see. So what kind of deck is able to empty itself and still hold on and fight for a couple of turns? Well, the answer is pretty clear. It's the Miracle Rogue or Miracle Rogue. It can do it with the Gadgets and Auctioneers, but more often it can be done with the Myra's Unstable Element. And as it happens, you can play Preparation, Myra's Unstable Element for 2 mana, Nomi, that's 9 mana, deck is empty, and you build a board, and you have a handful of cards that you can use to push more damage later. That's a pretty solid finisher for these sort of tempo-ish rogue decks. Right now there doesn't seem to be any other decks that would be comfortable emptying the deck, but those might come. But right now it looks like, even though it's a neutral card, it's mostly situated within rogue. Archvillain Rafaam, a Warlock minion. Legendary Warlock minion, 7 mana 7/8 Taunt, Battlecry, replace your hand and deck with legendary minions. And this effect, we have had this effect before. We had this back in League of Explorers, when we had Elise Starseeker, and Elise shuffled Map to the Golden Monkey to her deck, and then once you found the map to the Golden Monkey, then you could play that, and you could shuffle the Golden Monkey to your deck, and then you could finally play the Golden Monkey, which was a 4 mana 6/6 Taunt, with this exact same Battlecry, replace your hand and deck with legendary minions. And for a time, this was the endgame meta. This was the Control Warrior endgame meta. You have a deck, it's full of removal. Once you use up as much removal as you want and need, and if you happen to need some threats for some purposes, then you can turn all of those removal cards into threats and go to town with those. It's a powerful effect. I expect that it could see play if there are any Control Warlock decks available. But are there any Control Warlock decks available? I'm not completely sure. In the current meta there would also be the additional twist with Hakar the Soul Flayer. Hakar, shuffle a Corrupted Blood into each player's deck. Well, if you play Hakar and then you later play Rafaam, you negate the Hakar effect from your own deck, and you can just kill off your opponent with Hakar. Similar to what Paladin can do with Prince Liam. Up to this point, Paladin was the only class that was able to do it, but now Warlock joins those ranks, and Warlock has potentially ways to use Hakar. However, Warlock is losing all of its control tools, so yeah, this is a nice control tool, but Warlock needs survival tools. If it can't find survival tools in addition to Rafaam, then Rafaam is meaningless because no one can live long enough to play it. But it's a good card. It's a potent card, but it needs more support. Forbidden Words, another callback card, Priest spell, 0 mana, spend all your mana, destroy a minion with that much attack or less. So for 10 mana you can destroy a 10/10 or smaller minion. If you have like 3 mana, you play this on turn 3, you can destroy something with 3 attack. Fairly flexible, but it does use all of your mana. It's also a callback to older cards, Forbidden Spells. The previous Priest Forbidden spell was Forbidden Shaping, which also spent all your mana, it summoned a random minion. Well, Forbidden Words, of course the first thing that comes to mind is that Forbidden Words allows you to kill a Twilight Drake, because Priest has never been able to kill anything with 4 attack. However, Forbidden Words is not very efficient. It uses a lot of mana to destroy stuff. So when you compare it to something like Shadow Word Death, it really depends on the meta. Because if there's a meta where there are lots of like 5 attack minions or bigger, then simply putting in Shadow Word Death is so much better tempo-wise than using Forbidden Words, that I'm not sure if Forbidden Words is good enough to see play. It would have to be a meta where Priest really needs the flexibility of this removal spell, and maybe there might be some really important 4 attack minions in the meta that have to be removed. The previous set of Forbidden cards saw fairly limited play, and I'm not overly enthusiastic about Forbidden Words. Evil Miscreant, Rogue card, 3 mana 1/5, combo add 2 random lackeys to your hand. And there are a total of 5 lackeys, and you will get 2 randomly. And the lackeys are all 1 mana 1/1 minions with a powerful battle cry. And these lackeys are actually really good cards. So getting lackeys is a valuable goal for Rogue. They enable you to activate combos, and they can do some nice effects. So yeah, lackeys as such, good. Evil Miscreant, 3 mana 1/5. Why would you want a 3 mana 1/5 as a rogue? Basically, the scenario where you'd like the card like this would be a scenario where you have some ways to buff it up. So maybe you use something like Crazed Chemist. Or maybe you put in that Cold Blood into the deck. But 1/5, that is such a huge tempo loss that it's currently very difficult to see what rogue deck would like to actually use this card. I don't expect this card to see play. Kalecgos, Mage Dragon, 10 mana 4/12. Your first spell each turn costs 0 and Battlecry discovers spell. By the way, don't coin out Kalecgos, that would be pretty painful, because then that coin would be your first spell that turn. But yeah, playing Kalecgos for 10 mana, you get to discover a spell. Discover is a very powerful effect. The discover pool is pretty strong. You're relatively likely to find something that you need, and then you can cast that immediately for free. Absolutely a great card if there are any dragon mages around. There are still a bunch of dragon synergy cards, Fire 3 Witch Doctors and stuff like that around. But the big problem for Mage is that with Frostleaf Chain, Arcane Artificer going away, Mage also lacks survivability. So both Mage and Warlock are now getting these endgame win condition cards for their control archetypes. But they don't have any survivability, so we need to see more survivability from the remainder of the set for these good cards to see play. Hagata Scheme, Shaman spell, 5 mana, deal 1 damage to all minions, upgrades each turn. So it's been in your hand for a turn, it deals 2 damage, it's been in your hand for 2 turns, it deals 3 damage. It has been confirmed that this is going on indefinitely, so after 10 turns, 11 damage, that sort of stuff. So a very powerful late game board clear spell, perfect for countering something like Nomi. And with Shaman losing Volcano, having only access to Lightning Storm, Hagata Scheme seems like a fine card. It fills a spot where Shaman is losing the tools, it gives Shaman a new tool to do things like this. Is this sort of board clear that clears both sides of the board? Is that desirable for Shaman? For specific archetypes it could be. If you're running stuff like Hagata, Shudderwock, this sort of grindy value Shaman, yeah, I can totally see that you want to use this kind of card in the deck. Spellward Jeweler, a neutral 3 mana 3/4, that's a good stat line, it can be played on curve regardless of its effect, so it's a potent card for various midrange decks. And the effect is Battlecry, your hero can't be targeted by spells or hero powers until your next turn. That means that you cannot be killed with Holy Wrath combo, you cannot be killed with various Malygos combos, unless it's a priest and it uses Mind Blast if someone can still play priest. But you can be killed by also other things that don't target you, like Megatoon. Megatoon doesn't target you, so you still die. Why would you want to play this? 3/4 stat line used to be a very premium stat line. Currently there are several cards with 3/4 stat line available for that 3 mana, so it's not that special right now. But for specific combo metas, there's your mid-range card. It doesn't feel too bad to play it on curve if you know that you're facing a lot of combo decks anyway, and on mid-range or aggro matchups you just play this on 3, but you still don't put it in the deck unless there's a significant number of combo decks around. The Forest's Aid, a twin spell, 8 mana, summon 5/2/2 treants, so that would be 10/10 stats overall, For 8 mana, that's reasonable, especially when it's one card that becomes 2 cards, so actually you can play twice. It's pretty expensive, and typically when you come to stuff like 8 mana cards, you want those to have an immediate effect on the board, and not something small that can be wiped out with like a lightning storm. But on the other hand, the token druid was running a bit low on resources. There's still a lot of treant support in the meta. There's tree speakers, there's mulch munchers, all sorts of these treant support cards. 8 mana is a quite painful cost because you can't Soul of the Forest those minions on the same turn, and that can be a problem. So we'll have to see the overall package. But token, and especially treant token druid, seems to be the most powerful druid archetype going into the new expansion, so there's definitely a chance for this to see play. Then the new card for today, Togwaggle's Scheme. 1 mana spell, rogue spell. Choose a minion, shuffle 1 copy of it into your deck and upgrades each turn. And in the reveal video they are showing this played on turn 10 so that it shuffles 9 copies of Boko Hopper into the deck. Yeah, that's infinite value. That's almost infinite value anyway. Very powerful card. Could be used in like Pogo Rogue. It could be used with Jeff Nomi perhaps somehow. Could have other uses after Myras too. So potentially quite interesting card. Not only in Pogo Rogue, but also in rogue decks that use Myras. Because then you can choose whatever minion and just make copies of that into your deck and avoid the fatigue. It's interesting that this card is given to Rogue specifically, because Rogue doesn't do defense very well. Rogue's pretty easy to kill. So in particular in Rogue, just by having infinite value available doesn't mean that you're surviving long enough to use it. If a similar card was in something like Warrior, then we all know where that would lead. We have seen Dead Man's Hand. But Rogue has to be more careful about striking a balance between maintaining threats and shuffling stuff into the deck. Very interesting card. Those were all the new cards so far, and I will be making more review videos as we get more new cards. It's going to be 135 cards in the set, we have seen 9 of them, so that's 126 to go. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.